Sit back and enjoy a few photographs and video clips of Pat, John, Billy and Corey's 16-day adventure aboard Cunard's Queen Victoria. We left San Francisco on the evening of Tuesday, April the 1st and cruised for 7 days before arriving at Puntarenas in Costa Rica. We spent most of the day there. On the morning of Thursday, April the 10th, we began our one-day journey through the Panama Canal. Lots of video clips and photos of this part of our cruise. We arrived in Oranjestad, Aruba around 7:30 in the morning on Saturday and had a full day of sightseeing. We got underway in the evening around 5:30. We anchored off Georgetown, Grand Cayman on Monday morning and then tended ashore to explore the island. We left around 4:30 and began the final leg of our cruise to the cruise port of Port Everglades, Fort Lauderdale. We said farewell to Queen Victoria early on the morning of Wednesday, April the 16th. Well, that's a quick rundown of our itinerary. Now let's have a look at some of the photos and video clips that we took on our cruise. Pat and I flew from Reno to San Francisco on United Airlines. It's not an uncommon sight nowadays to look up at the departure board to see that your plane's been delayed. It was no exception for us today. We were scheduled to arrive in San Francisco at 12:55. This would have given us plenty of time to make the final boarding call of 4:30. First it was a 1-hour delay, then another hour delay. We started to get concerned. If we missed the boat, there was no way we would be joining Billy and Corey on the cruise. As it turned out, we made it on board around 4 o'clock. Next time we'll book a hotel for the night before the cruise. Billy and Corey arrived at Reno Airport at 4:15 in the morning to catch their early flight to San Jose. After taking their pre-arranged taxi ride to the cruise port, they spent most of the day checking out San Fran. They had to dodge some heavy downpours throughout the day. In fact, the night before, high winds broke Queen Victoria's moorings and it made national news. Although Cunard was still working on fixing the gangplanks, they had no problem boarding in the afternoon. Once on board, it was time for a champagne toast. We were on the 8th deck in cabin 8118. Billy and Corey were 2 cabins along in 8114. I thought I'd lost my pin to commemorate 50 years in the USA. Billy found it for me. Before getting too far into the slideshow, I should mention there are lots and lots of photos of us preparing for dinner. Kinda like a fashion show. We chose the early dinner seating and a table for 6. On the first night, the other couple were no-shows. More about Janet and David later on. After dinner, the 4 of us went to the opening night show, and then it was early to bed as we left San Francisco and cruised underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. Wednesday the 2nd, at sea. Corey kept a daily log of our activities, and I'll mention some of them in the slideshow. If you want to read the log in detail, you'll most likely have to pause the video. After getting our cabin straightened out with the purser, we tried our hand at line dancing. Then it was off to the Golden Lion pub for lunch. Here we met our long lost friends Ian and June. Well, maybe they weren't really our long lost friends. After a nap, it was time to head down to the Queen's room for afternoon tea. This became a regular part of our afternoon activities. The sandwiches with their crust cut off and the scones and cream were very tasty. We always had seconds, and Billy did like to have a few extra cups of tea. In the afternoon, Corey and I challenged Billy and Pat at deck shuffleboard. The less said about who won, the better. At dinner we met David and Janet. Janet had cruised on the UK canals for 40 years, so on most nights she and I entertained the rest of the group with our canal stories. Pat and I turned in early, but Billy and Corey went to the evening show and enjoyed the singing of Philip Brown. Billy got to dance with him. Before calling it a night, they played a game of hullabaloo and won a bottle of champagne. After breakfast in the Lido Cafe, Corey and I tried our hands at the quoits competition. We lost in the first round. I should mention that the weather was great throughout the cruise, so we spent quite a bit of time on deck and around the pools. Billy was very good at keeping up with her daily jogs around deck 3. While she was keeping herself fit, Pat and I went to a lecture in the theatre on water currents. It's 3 o'clock, so it's tea time. The dress code for dinner tonight is formal, so it's time to get spruced up. Another daily routine was scotch in our cabin before heading down to the Britannia restaurant for dinner. Okay, now I'll start the fashion parade. We're on our way to the captain's ball and the black and white dance. After dinner, the 4 of us went to the Royal Court Theatre to watch the Mind Reader show. Corey volunteered to go on stage and became part of the act. Later on, Billy was put in charge of handing out the audience questionnaire cards. By the way, they always sat in the first row. Our 3rd full day at sea. As we didn't get the camera out very much, I'll give you some extra time to read Corey's log. We all went to see the Swinging Rascals show, and afterwards Billy and Corey went to the ABBA and 70s dance. As you can see from Corey's log, this was just another one of those at-sea days. I think the highlight of the day was getting 12 out of 20 at trivia, but we did have help from another couple. If you want to read all of the log, I suggest you pause the video. This is Ian with Billy. We got together with him and his wife June quite a number of times. They were good company. It was early to bed for Pat and me. Billy and Corey met up for drinks with Ian and June in the Commodore's Club. While Billy walked 9 laps around deck 3, that's 3 miles, Corey and I played a marathon game of shuffleboard. I'm obligated to report that I won 101 to 98. While Billy wove a Turk's head anklet on Corrie, Pat and I attended a near-death experience lecture in the theatre. I have no idea why we went to it. Once again we hit the sack early. Billy and Corrie went to see an encore of some of the previous entertainers. The highlight of the morning was Corrie and I entering the world-famous Cunard shuffleboard competition. My team were runners-up. After having a pub lunch, we headed up to the Commodore's Club for a game of hearts. We returned to the pub to meet up with our teammates for our trivia game. We didn't improve on our 12 out of 20. Tonight was the masquerade ball. Be warned, the following photos are quite scary. Well, after 7 days at sea, we finally made landfall. We arrived at Puntarenas, Costa Rica during the early morning hours. This is downtown Puntarenas. Pat and I pre-booked the river and rail trip. It was okay, especially the river part, but it wasn't the most exciting adventure that we'd ever been on. It's difficult to make out the crocodile in the middle of the photograph. There really wasn't a lot of opportunity to take photos while on the train, and it was rather noisy. Billy and Corrie pre-booked the Skywalk and Gardens tour. Corrie took plenty of photos, and these are just a few of them. These are the beautiful macaw birds. And I think you know what these are. All four of us were back on board in time for afternoon tea, followed by scotch in the cabin. Tonight's dress code for dinner was informal. Wednesday the 9th of April, and we're back on the high seas. We only took a couple of photos today, so I'll read you Corrie's log. My daily assignment was to get a morning cuppa before going up to the Lido restaurant for breakfast. Most mornings Billy and Corrie would join us, but today they had breakfast delivered to their stateroom. Pat and I went to a morning lecture by Dr. Ria Seddon, a physician and retired astronaut. She went on 3 space shuttle flights, twice as mission specialist and once as payload commander. This was one of the more interesting lectures that we went to. We had lunch in the Lido buffet today, and afterwards Corrie and I went to the Johnny Walker Scotch tasting. Pat went to the standing room only Panama Canal talk. The rest of the afternoon was business as usual. Drinks in the pub and afternoon tea. The dress code for dinner tonight was informal. Our dining table had a picture view from the stern of the ship. The 4 of us went to the comedy impersonator show. Billy got a rose from the singer. Well, half a rose. And Corrie entertained us with his singing. Oh yes, Pat thought about sitting in the boxes tonight, but she couldn't quite understand why this door didn't lead to them.